All right, so let's get it together. Let's go ahead and start this meeting. We'll rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Wait, let me take a roll call first.
Coffee vanilla.
I love coffee. Okay. For attendance purposes, roll call, starting with Member Allen, who called in. He had an emergency that he can't be here for. Member Boucher, present. Member Heffnecker will be absent tonight, stuck in New Jersey. Member Iannucci, still dealing with a death and things that go along with that. Member Carlich.
Present.
Member Kelly.
Here.
Member Umberto.
Here.
And council is present. Counselor Elizabeth Cassidy. Okay, first up on the agenda is 208's not coming tonight, as you guys probably know already, but you have a new book. Take it with you. Otherwise, Rhonda has to carry them all back upstairs. She doesn't want to do that, so please take your books.
It'll make you stronger.
What doesn't
No.
kill you makes you stronger, you know?
I'll make you an ice cream cake if you take it home, you bet.
That will make me weaker.
So apparently, from what they told Rhonda, their most recent updates are in here from what comments were made last week. So they're looking to, I think, really move this along and get a public, review going, a public hearing. But we will need to do a resolution for the DEIS being incomplete. And I'm going to ask council if she will read the resolution into the minutes, and then we'll go ahead and vote on that resolution.
We've done this a couple of times before, so I'm gonna go back to my office and type everything up more formally, but this is the resolution purely to resolve the last draft that we received is incomplete, and we hope that this is the last incomplete resolution. So if I may have a motion, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board as the lead agency for the proposed action determines for reasons set forth in the consultant's memorandum referenced in this resolution, and that would be my memo, Natalie's memo, Andrew's memo, and Ted's memo. The DEIS is not complete for purposes of commencing public review, and be it further resolved that copies of all memorandum be provided to the applicant to guide preparation of a revised DEIS, which addresses the comments in those memoranda. And of course, that's already been done.
Elizabeth, did you state that the DIS is not
Yes.
complete?
Correct.
Correct.
The last draft of it that we considered.
Largely based on Natalie's memo,
Mhm.
and hence the revisions that we received.
And just so I can say to you guys, Joe, you need to put that microphone more in front of you, we were told tonight, so you can be heard, so swing your microphone. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the resolution is that we have, under the secret regulations, a specific time period to say, yes, it's complete, or no, it's not. And if we don't make a resolution that it's incomplete and we're silent, it is deemed complete. So that's why we're making the resolution tonight. They have our comments, they're well on their way to making those revisions, and hopefully this is the last incomplete resolution we're adopting.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Member Kelly,
I'll second that.
seconded by Member Umberto. All in favor
Aye.
Aye.
and opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We are now considering, Elizabeth sent to everyone redlined copies of the changes that we kind of all talked about the last time being together. Elizabeth, I think you said you didn't get to the places of worship, but I thought I saw one in there
Well,
and read through.
there are a couple of things that have been uploaded to the OneDrive. With respect to the places of worship law, which we had seen a couple of months ago, you had asked for the red line, which I uploaded after our meeting last go around. More recently, which, and I apologize that it was late yesterday, So you'll notice on the general map, the local law affecting the URM, that there's an additional set of questions with respect to the map. So I have updated our conversation to fit within those questions, and those are statutory,
Mhm.
those are codified in our zoning code, that those are the questions you as a board have to address.
Okay. So where do you want to start? Do we want to start right from the top of the list that you sent, which starts with Monroe CP changed pages, or the POW?
We can either go through my written up comments and get stuff finished, or we can do the two local laws we haven't discussed. What would you prefer, Mr. Chair?
I think,
Let's start with the two local laws.
okay, I was going to say the opposite only
Have it
because,
discussed, and then we'll go through all the comments.
okay. I was going to say the opposite only because we can get them all off the table and send them off. But what do you think? It doesn't matter.
It's one half dozen the other.
All right. All right.
So
You know what, that's fine. Let's go through, we can go through the ones that weren't discussed. I don't care.
let's do, and let me just get into it, the places of worship.
Yep.
This is the document you want, Elizabeth?
What law is that one?
That
Number?
is, that is, 5 of 2020.
I'm sorry?
5 of 2020.
5.
So there's two different documents depending on how you like to read. This is the document that Rhonda had, it's the Word document, KEY OW, hyphen schools 411 to 8 and I think 87. That's the red line. I think it's so red line that it's probably just easier to read the local law 5, which is all the way down the list.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the clean version. That's up to you guys.
It's fine with me. So I should ask, did you guys have a chance to read it? Do we need to take the time to go through it now?
Yes.
Yes on the second?
Yes.
Not yes, did we read it? Okay. All right, look, take a few minutes and take it through. And while you're doing that, Elizabeth, can I just ask you a question on this? Obviously, when it comes to places of worship, a lot of people get very concerned. A lot of things. People that are creating the laws, they get concerned about lawsuits. People that the laws will be creating for get concerned because it limits what they can do or not do. So are these, the legislative intent and everything else, is this already accepted in New York State law somewhere?
I can tell you that I have seen similar laws adopted in other places. I believe Monticello has this one.
Has it been challenged, I guess is really what I should have said.
That would be a better question for Max. Have I seen, I mean, my understanding is that this generalized structure has been successful and has withstood challenge. The
Okay.
biggest issue between the first version and the second version of the law was that it applied certain special permit standards only to religious uses as opposed to all.
Gotcha.
So what the large rewrite was to take those restrictions out and apply them to all special permit uses.
Got it. Yep.
Right, in an effort, effectively, the original drafts in some instances might have come across as making houses of worship, places of worship more restrictive than other uses permitted in the zone, and I don't think that was the intention. So, the village board has rewritten.
Right, they got a little myopic and now they opened it back up. Right, which makes more sense.
This also, it should be noted that, you'll see in here, in the definition section, I believe 14 is the magic number. So this does not prevent,
right, up to
I
like,
think it's 14 is the maximum.
14, okay.
Yeah, because a gathering place residential is 15 or more persons. So something under 14 is unregulated, is not regulated.
So if people have a party at their home, it has to be so many times in a year, maybe? Did I read that?
What the village is stating is that they have witnessed large gatherings of people for worship almost on a weekly basis. That's not a gathering once a year or twice a year for a tax purpose or anything like that. I was at a village board meeting, maybe a month ago, maybe a little more than that, 6 weeks ago. Gentleman, I think it was up on Whitaker, somewhere up there, that area. One of the houses, every Friday night, 50 cars come up and park.
Right, and that's not good for the whole neighborhood, obviously.
It's a residential neighborhood. How do you stop that?
I'm just trying to protect Fred's house when he throws those parties. That's all. Make sure he can still do that.
I'm gonna try to limit them to, twice a month.
You know? Elizabeth, how do you stop something like that? Or you don't?
Well, again, it depends on the scale and nature. This local law is seeking to regulate the larger religious uses.
How large is the larger religious uses?
So if you look at the definition section, there are a couple of different, there's gathering place residential, that's a small congregation within a home, and you'll see that there's that doesn't go, that's between 15 and 49 people, or there's a formula depending on how big the house is. And there is a community place of worship,
1,000 square
which is
feet.
for regular organized religious assembly, with 10,000 gross square feet of floor area. Place of worship neighborhood is a non-residential use of a building or structure for regular organized religious assembly, but it is less than 10,000 square feet, so that's your small, neighborhood church. And then also included in here is a school of general instruction. Which includes secular, non-secular, that ties up everything.
Do we know, is the comprehensive plan on the village agenda for a vote? To accept the new,
I believe a public hearing is set for September 5th, continued.
so then yes, it would be.
Continued, and then, the intent is, my understanding is the intent.
Okay.
is to vote on it in this month of September.
So are they going, there's roughly, for argument's sake, let's just say 20 new laws. Is there going to be a public hearing on these 20 laws?
There has to be, so.
There has to be. Okay, so that means August is done.
I believe the public hearings are.
September
set for-
5th,
for
yeah.
September 5th. I don't know that they'll get through all of them. They can adopt the comp plan without adopting the local laws. They could adopt one local law, they could adopt 20 local laws. But they would have to go through for each and every, because they've done this in discrete sections, each local law requires a public hearing, requires referral they do have 239 referrals, so that gets sent out. So my understanding is that has been done, but I have not participated in that process.
Yeah, okay, so the gatherings are more than 12 times a year. That's where it kicks in. So you can keep your parties, Fred, as long as you keep it to once a month.
in certain areas, you can drive up the road and see 15 or more people sitting on the front lawn in their chairs under trees. And their kids are walking the streets. So in essence, you could almost have a place of worship on every block in every neighborhood. What the hell does that do to your tax roll?
Well,
Are these places of worship free from tax?
if they, generally speaking,
If they're owned by the nonprofit.
if they're, if they satisfy the criteria of a religious use, our state as well as our country have a longstanding system that religious use is for the public benefit and they are not taxed. They have to pay some versions of taxes, so use fees, sewer, water, things like that, things that they actually use.
I mean, listen, we've been involved in this since 1975. It's growing and growing and growing, and it has grown to the point of 2023, what you're basically saying, we can't do anything.
Well, you can impose reasonable time, manner, and restrictions on,
Time, manner, restrictions for what, meetings?
not, and I shouldn't, let me step back. You can impose reasonable restrictions on site plans and things like that, so it's not just carte blanche. Generally speaking, there is a preference towards religious use, all religious uses, that they be permitted throughout towns, and that's not just Monroe, that's everywhere. You are allowed to put in reasonable restrictions. If the mega church wants to come in, they gotta prove that the site can accommodate the traffic, that the intersections can accommodate the traffic, and, things like that. So they do still have to go through that process.
On these side roads, and the example that I cited just on Winchester.
Well, this
Just-
would,
Because,
right, this would stop that. Then you have an enforcement officer that would have to go up there and enforce it. Now, if it's a party once or twice, then it's not a problem, or once a month. You know, then it's,
You know, lots of churches, I know my own home church, you know, Christmas Eve mass, you know, the 4 o'clock, you know, Christmas Eve pageant mass,
mm-hmm.
you weren't getting down that street. And it was a local, you know, it was a residential street,
Yeah.
because.
Well, and they would be grandfathered too, the ones that are already established by law. They're not gonna, you know, stop them, you know, like Elizabeth Church, if it was here on her end of her residence.
but do we think all these homes are already established by law?
No, they're not. They had to come here if they, you know, for certain things to become, like the one over on Freeland. We were dealing with that one for over a year.
Elizabeth, take me through this. What trips this now? There's got to be a gathering more than 12 times per year.
So, depending on the definition size, so it's frequency and size of congregation or building, based on the definitions. So, the first one is, sorry, I lost my spot in here. The gathering place, which is, the non-residential accessory use of a portion of an owner-occupied one-family detached dwelling. Less, 15 or more the lesser of 49 persons, and then there's a spatial formula, depending on how big the house is. If you've got a 800 square foot house, you're not getting very many people in there.
So Elizabeth, along with Fred's question, what triggers it in the sense of like, is it a neighbor? And who do they call? Is it they call the building department? They call,
What do you,
in other words, the average person, the building inspector, they're not gonna see necessarily, they're not driving around the village on a Sunday or whatever to look at that. So it's gonna be reported by someone, probably a neighbor of a home that's being affected. That would be my guess, right?
typically what I see is that, the complaints go to the police department, either lots of extra cars, cars blocking a street, or a noise violation, less so with religious, that's more parties, but same type of thing, you get a noise violation, the police department process the complaint, and if it turns out to be a religious service, it would get referred to Jim.
So you would have to admit, if the police come, I'm just trying to see the practicality. The police come on a neighbor report, there's 30 cars, whatever it is, a lot more than, 15 people. They come up and somebody says, oh, is this religious? So you need them to be saying, we're gathered for a service.
Not,
Or a religious,
Not necessarily,
No.
because you could have, think about a rowdy party, you could have a rowdy party, and the police.
Right.
Police could,
just over a certain number. So this happens, right, this happens more frequently than once a month. So this is a long-term solution. Like, in other words, it's gonna take you a while, because you've got to watch this happening for a good,
And
long.
right now, there is no regulation of these smaller,
I totally understand. So you would need theoretically, if I'm thinking through this the way I'm reading it, you would need at least 2 complaints per month of a gathering like that, because if it's once a month, it's okay, as long as it's not a noise thing, right? 1 complaint, as long as the cars are parked legally and the noise isn't really loud, or they could cite them for those things, but you're not gonna trigger this unless,
well, you could trigger an over occupancy.
you have to have at least 13, well, not 13. See,
No,
that's why,
it says, the gatherings occur more than 12 times a year. So, but again, these are cumulative, so if.
so if they did it 4 times a month on the 4, say
Yeah,
Saturdays or
and on the
Sundays,
first time, there was 100 people, when they have an occupancy of 25,
but you still haven't violated 12 times.
take the 12 times out
Okay.
of your head.
Yep, okay,
Okay, the violation is that, okay, you are X use, right? You
Yep.
meet this definition, you need a special permit, you don't have a special permit. That's the violation.
so who makes that call?
Jim,
All right, so the police notify the building department.
generally speaking.
And will they notify the building department, for example, and you may not know this, I'm not sure anybody's talked through it, but do they notify them on each occasion, or when it becomes what number? Which complaint?
My understanding is generally the call gets made to Jim after each.
Okay. So then it would cause him at some point, and is there something in the law, because I didn't see anything here, that triggers, that says to whoever the building inspector would be, you have to investigate this?
So, this is where I say a building inspector is an independent officer of the village. And there is a level of discretion. Generally speaking, a building inspector should investigate every single complaint. There's a little bit of discretion there because sometimes you get the people in the world who do nothing but complain and they know that, right? But generally speaking, yes, a building inspector should be investigating each complaint as they come in and go through a process where they notify the property owner, you're in apparent violation, you need to remedy this. Okay, you haven't remedied it, now it's in order to remedy. Okay, you haven't remedied it, now we're taking you to court. Okay.
So the code enforcement official, whoever it is at the time, does a write-up afterward and has to record that.
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
I wouldn't want to be going up doing it.
The code enforcement can be a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah. I just didn't know if there were,
In fact, one could see scenarios here where 3 houses on a block, all seriatim. You just move the.
yes, I was thinking the same
you just
thing.
You just move the
Yeah.
gathering one house down.
And cycle
And
it,
the effect on the neighborhood is the same,
yeah.
is as deleterious.
So that would be a very good note to give to the village board to say, is there any consideration and what would you do? Because that's a really, because in certain circumstances, you can see that as a reality. You know, churches, you know, synagogues, they could do that. You know what I mean? If you had people all on the same street that wanted to do this and it might even be easier for them. We're gonna move from home to home, so no one has to, but it's on the same street.
That's right. You do the catering next week.
Exactly. You know?
Last Sunday evening on High Street, there must have been 8 cars in a driveway, 4 cars on the front lawn, 10 cars up and down the street.
Yeah.
They were all hooting and hollering. The only reason we knew is we're almost
You heard the preacher.
2.5 blocks over, okay? And we heard all the singing and the music, how loud it was. You know, it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock,
Did you sing along?
and then it went quiet. You know, Jeff, believe me, it's not a funny situation.
No, I think,
It stinks.
I think it can, certainly. In a neighborhood, yeah, it certainly can.
It stinks.
Yeah. Yep.
It stinks.
So, all right,
Okay, and I saw that man 6 weeks ago before our board. And that board just looked at them as if there were deers in a headlight. Didn't say boo to him, just said, thank you, and goodbye. No comment, no questions, no comment. What do you think? What should I do? What can I do? Said
Yes.
absolutely nothing.
all right, so,
We have to go through.
yes, so did you guys get at least a look through the legislative intent? And you read the one before, the changes that were made were really, like Elizabeth said, to open it up and include, you know,
I think I actually started writing something up.
yeah, it's not just the narrow view of churches or religious organizations, so, in those areas. So, anybody have any comments they came across, or they want to see, or they want to understand?
So I did take it, I told Mr. Umberto that I hadn't touched this yet, but I think I started drafting, and I didn't upload it because I wanted to have a discussion.
You know, on most of these laws, it's all a matter of enforcement.
It's like any, yeah,
Every
it's
one of these laws,
every law.
every one of these laws don't have that summary conclusion that says this falls in the realm of the police, this falls in the realm of the building inspector, this falls in the realm of whoever.
I think, Joe, you know,
I think that's a mistake.
well, and that's why I was bringing up before what I said. And Elizabeth, maybe we could just ask the board or put a comment to them to say, you know, is there a way, you know, that something could be written out, or just for the understanding purpose of who enforces? Because
A
I think,
procedure, what a local.
a procedure, that's the word I was looking for, I couldn't think of the word. A procedure,
Yeah,
right, for enforcement.
yeah.
Well, so all of these are zoning local laws, okay?
Mhm.
So if they're adopted, they're gonna get codified
In the zoning.
in the zoning, and then if I pull up the zoning, give me 1 second.
So that's our procedure then.
So your procedure is not necessarily in the local laws because they're affecting discrete articles. You would then go into
Mhm.
the
That makes
enforcement
sense.
section and the administration enforcement, which is Article 14. And then it shall be the duty of the building inspector who shall be appointed by the village board to enforce the provisions of this chapter. And when I say chapter, I'm referring to
Right.
the zoning chapter.
Mhm.
Um, The right to enter, this is to your question, earlier question, Mr. Umberto. The building inspector or duly authorized assistant shall have the right to enter any building or enter upon any land at any reasonable hour as necessary in the execution of their duty, provided the building inspector shall notify the owner and tenant before conducting any interior inspection. The building inspector or his duly authorized assistant shall display proper identification. Inspections shall be commenced in the presence of the owner or his representative or tenant. They have to maintain the files, they have to maintain the record of complaints. Building inspector shall also maintain records open to the public of every complaint of a violation of the provisions of this chapter, as well as the action taken as a result of such complaints. All complaints shall be in writing and signed by the individual making the complaint.
We talked a little bit about this before,
Mhm.
and in essence, our legal people, official people, would need a search warrant in
Yeah.
order to go
I-
into these.
You don't have to so,
Right.
you as residents say,
No.
you don't have to let Jim, if Jim knocks on your door and says, hey, I think there's a violation in your house, I wanna come inspect. You don't have to let him in. Now, if you apply for a building permit and you don't let him in, you're not gonna get your certificate of occupancy.
Right.
But if he knocks on your door and says, I wanna come in without
Notice.
a schedule, not just notice. If he comes and knocks on your door and says, hi, we think there's a violation, we wanna come see it, you can say no.
Mhm.
And then he has to go get a search warrant,
Right.
because
Do the other code enforcement officials that the village has, I think they just hired somebody, I'm not sure, somewhere in there, like, so they might have two?
she's just.
No, there's another enforcement person, I think.
Oh, are you talking about Frank? There's Debbie, Jim, and Frank. Frank's the fire code.
I think there's another, yeah, another guy.
There was, but I don't know that the position's been filled.
Okay, say it is, just to, whatever, it's not the really important part. Do all those officials answer to the mayor or to the building department? I'm just curious, do you know that?
So, the building inspector is an independent officer of the village.
But who do those employees of the village answer to?
The building inspector.
The building inspector. The building inspector is an independent. the
That I
mayor-
know. Hmm?
The building inspector, and this is across all villages, is an independent officer of the village.
Hmm?
And can make that determination
What determination?
as to whether something is a violation of the.
Right. Right, okay. I just want to know who answers to who. That's all, you know? Okay, good.
So,
So what we're saying, in cases like this, the building inspector is the guy.
in this, yes, the way it's written, and
And
general, and this follows
the
what I
ma-
see in other municipalities.
and the mayor and the board, or, you know,
And,
they don't have much to say.
well, they can amend the law.
Yeah,
It's like when the Supreme Court issues a determination that Congress, a decision Congress doesn't like, they would change the law. I did start a draft of something, so I just wanted to read it. Whether the change is consistent with the aims and principles embodied in the chapter as to the particular districts. The purpose of the proposed local law is to better regulate places of worship, particularly in the residential zones where large gatherings may interrupt residential areas, particularly with traffic. This is consistent with the intent of the existing residential zone. in the village of, in the Monroe zoning code. That was question one. Question two. Which areas, land uses, buildings, and establishments in the village will be directly affected by such change, and in what ways will they be affected? The proposed changes will affect properties throughout the village with the greatest impacts on properties within the various residential zones. Places of worship with congregations in excess of 15 people will be impacted. The law also alters the supplementary regulations applying to non-residential uses within residential zones, SR20, SR10, URW, and URN. Non-residential uses outside of places of worship may be impacted. It is anticipated that this impact will be relatively modest, as there are very few non-residential uses permitted in these zones. I have not identified any indirect implications of the change on other regulations. And then, question four, whether such proposed amendment is consistent with the aims of the comprehensive plan. The village has introduced amendments to the comprehensive plan simultaneously with the introduction of this and other local laws. The comprehensive plan identifies that places of worship and schools have used buildings that are not suitable under fire code. It appears that the proposed legislation seeks to ensure appropriate siting of such uses to ensure conformity with both building and fire codes, as well as the intent of the zoning code.
So Elizabeth, so when they talk about like in the, on page 7 of 8 in the document we're looking at, and they talk about number 3, where it says only habitable spaces within structures in compliance with applicable fire and building codes may be utilized for a residential gathering place.
Right. So you can't have a residential gathering place in your unfinished basement or attic.
Okay, so it's not talking about fire suppression systems, because that would be a public use space.
Well, so that's, again, why the number 14, my understanding is the number 14 comes from the fire code, because as soon as you go over 14, it becomes a place of assembly, and then additional requirements kick in.
By state law or by village? Because if that's the case, they used to allow, I think it was up to 49.
I'm sorry, that's the 49 number, correct, you are
Oh.
correct. I'm sorry. I just-
Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense to me.
40, over that, it's sprinklered and,
Then it kicks in.
yeah.
Okay.
But no, you can't,
Otherwise, I'm saying Super Bowl party, a couple times.
yeah, you can't use areas that are not habitable.
Not
They've
suitable.
gotta have walls and, on.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think, okay. So,
Does anybody have anything else to add to what I?
yes, in the interest of time, is there anything that you guys have?
Well, my only comment is on, I don't like that the planning board, some things are left to planning board decision, like you can alter the bulk requirements by 3%. And, if you have a zoning law that has specific zoning requirements, I think that should be either per the law or sent to the ZBA if that's what they need. I don't think the planning board has should be able to do that, just like with the parking. You can adjust if the planning board doesn't think there's adequate parking. But how do we, and that we can adjust it by 25%, I think that's the parking.
I think what that is, though, on the parking specifically, Marilyn,
Yeah.
Ted explained that to us all one time, where, it looks like, let's say that you wanted the place to not look like a big parking lot,
Right.
then you can bank the
Oh, yeah,
parking.
you can bank it, but it's still not gonna get used, and if it is gonna get used, then it's gonna look like a parking lot.
Correct. So, right, that would be correct. So by code, you need this many spots if you have this many
People.
people.
Yeah, and that's even for that residential gathering place. There are limits on the people and the cars, and you have to have it on your property, not on the street. It says that,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
So-
that one's gonna be a hard one to enforce,
Yes,
for anybody,
exactly.
for anybody,
For anybody.
for any party, for any use.
Anything. No, for anything.
Right,
And I agree, and it is, but I mean, there are requirements,
yeah.
you know?
But the powers that are given to the planning board come from the village board.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's, I don't think that it should be given to, that's my opinion. Shouldn't be given to the planning board to make that decision.
I'm thinking, I can't think of a specific instance, but I think it's because, of, if you have a circumstance that it makes sense, and it's a 3% or it's whatever, they give you that latitude, but we're using our professionals as well, so it's not just us.
Yeah, because you have to make a decision based on the welfare, the good and the welfare
Exactly.
of the,
Mhm.
of the community.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot involved, and I don't know if, that should be the planning board's discretion. I think our role is to follow zoning code,
And,
so.
well, it does, what I would say is it does still give you a stopgap, because after that 3%, it's whatever, I'm gonna say, I'll make this up, 100-foot frontage, right? You've got 3%, okay. The frontage, they've got 99 and a half feet.
Right.
Are we gonna send them to the ZBA for 6 inches? And so that's why there's some flexibility in there, but you're still, once you hit that 3 feet, you
Right.
are still restricted, and you can, and then there are times that it's not appropriate to exercise that 3%. I have seen provisions in laws, largely to facilitate applications so that
Doesn't bog the
de
system down.
minimis,
Yeah.
de minimis, 12 inches, 6
Right.
inches, aren't going to aren't spending tens of thousands of dollars going to the ZBA
Yeah.
when there is no detriment. Now, if that 3% incorporates a sightline issue or other issue, then you have the ability to say no, and the applicant has to ask for it. I have seen these in other codes. Again, it gives you that little wiggle room, but once you get to 3%,
Right. It's hard and fast.
yeah, so you're talking, if you've got a 50-foot dimensional standard, you're talking 1.5 foot. You're not talking a ton of
Space,
dimension
yeah.
there. So
Does that help clarify it, Marilyn?
No, I understand it, yeah. I still don't think it's appropriate, but, whatever, if it's the law, it's the law, but,
Right.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's just, it's my feeling.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all,
I appreciate that.
you know.
Anybody else on this law? Can we forward this with the comments that are currently there to the board?
I think what I'm gonna do under the indirect implications is discuss I'm gonna incorporate our discussion about enforcement and
Yes. Because I think it's something that they should be discussing and thinking about. How do you do it? Because you could have a great law, but it's impractical if you can't
well,
enforce it.
it always comes down to enforcement.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and Monroe is not alone.
Right.
You balance the
Personal rights and,
costs,
yeah.
the cost of the enforcement, because you have to have the manpower to do it, the effect, and, some municipalities choose to get the big stuff and leave the little stuff go because it's cost prohibitive. Other municipalities are, but there's a cost benefit analysis that every municipality has to do.
Right.
Well, I think too, many of these events, happenings would be on a weekend or later in the evenings.
Mhm.
And I think, to have somebody come out to do that, of course, you're looking at extra expense, overtime, particularly on a
Well, the
Saturday.
police would do that. If a code enforcement person came, he'd probably come during the day to the
And-
homeowner.
Yeah, but he
or-
wouldn't come on a Saturday and it could be over and he wouldn't see it.
No, but a police officer would.
Yeah, but it's but the police officer isn't the enforcer. It would be the code enforcer, which is the building.
No, but they'd
inspector.
write the
Police officer
report.
could serve as a witness.
They can
Right.
report it, but
Police
that's it.
officer.
Yeah, but he's just witnessing. Right, that's it.
Witnessing.
Right.
No, I'm just saying, it'll be expensive, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be expensive anyway, even without that
Yeah.
part, you
Yeah.
know, so.
So if that one, since we are in a regular meeting, what I have just read, and I appreciate it's not in front of you, do you want to make a motion to approve those comments so that we can start ticking those off?
Yes, I think we could do that. So, how do we phrase that? Let me see the name of the law here?
Motion to approve the comments as presented by the planning board attorney.
As relates to local law 5 of 2023. All in favor?
No, you need.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion first, sorry.
Go ahead. I'll make the motion.
Member Umberto makes the motion, second. Member Kelly seconded, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that motion passes, and that'll be presented,
Which was that, local law 5?
5 of 2023. Okay,
Give me 1 second, I gotta get out of this one and into the next one. So I wanna go into, it's written as introductory local law, so ILL 10 of 2023.
illegal residential occupancy law. Okay. And this is, we hadn't discussed this, did we? Because I remember discussing
No,
this.
we have not discussed this. This
Okay.
is local law. I had received a preliminary draft of it, and then they advised that they were making changes to
Just read
this
the pink.
local law.
All right, so why doesn't everybody take a couple minutes just to read through this, because you just got it fairly recently. The other ones, we went through. Mm-hmm.
Decisions on some of this, what they're requiring.
Elizabeth, if you just look at Section 2 legislative purpose, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line down, starts with converted them into boarding houses and multifamily dwellings. Does that read right? Two? So,
Converted into boarding houses to, yes, and multifamily dwellings in violation of the zone. Yes, that reads okay to me.
Okay, I guess I'll give you an example. There's a couple of small houses in the Freedman Homes area of the village. They're 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom maybe. Talk about boarding house, or the concept of a boarding house. You may have 20 people, 20 illegals living in there. 20 males, 13, 15 cars in the driveway on the front lawn. How does this law help?
says you can't do that.
Unless.
How come we're not looking at those homes now?
Because there's no law.
I mean, I happen to just underline an area these prohibited illegal residence occupations often do and are more likely to fail to comply to New York Fire Code, New York State Building Code, and create a dangerous situation. I mean, that's all it does.
Maybe this
But
law, Joe, is putting
but
more
that-
teeth to it.
But those laws have already been in effect.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to give me a specific example.
That's the only reason I wanted you to read that. Those laws are in effect.
Well, we include that in the conversation in the comments, back to the village board.
You know? And what is it? This is based on Jim Cox to do again?
It's all gonna come under the building inspector because these are zoning laws.
I mean, Where's our law enforcement,
It's not their,
you know? Police cars go by all the time and see this mess. And I'm
right, but
not-
you don't want your police starting to do that, because that would take them from the more important subjects of saving lives, responding to first aid.
and I'm
fires.
trying to figure out how they do
Yeah,
that.
it's not a police matter, unless something,
The code, so, and when I say code, I want to be clear, there are multiple codes. There's building and fire code, which is state
Fire-
reg,
right.
State
regulatory,
regs, right.
right? And then our zoning code. Both codes under, our scheme, both village-wide and as well as, generally throughout the state, is enforced by your, building inspector. You'll also see the term code enforcement officer. And that's,
or fire inspector, no?
there's you can have both.
Right.
You can have both. And sometimes larger municipalities have a building inspector, and their sole job is, does this meet building code? Do these plans meet building code, issue building permits, that thing? Then you have your code enforcement officer who, is responsible for enforcing the zoning code, and then you have your fire officer who is responsible for the fire code.
Who's our fire code
Frank
officer?
Pace.
Chief of police?
Frank Pace is our fire inspector.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out where their eyes are.
So Elizabeth, or Fred, you may have had some, I look at the definition, the functional family unit
Mhm.
on page 3. Who's gonna figure that out?
Oh, there it is. Yes.
Yeah, is that gonna be Jim, or, forget Jim as the person, is that gonna be a building inspector going in there and figuring out the family unit?
Well,
It says people that are not necessarily related.
Well, it gives you a whole host of things. I mean, I agree in, like, what they're, trying to define it.
you can't you can't say, you're not a family, right? Because we are long past the days of family had to be by blood.
Yeah, we can identify as a family now.
Yeah, right. So a family can be any number of things. You could have a group of 3 college girls renting a 3-bedroom house, and they all use the same kitchen, right?
It's like a hostel, yeah.
Well, but not a hostel. It's
Well, you're not sleeping in the same room, right?
three college kids, but they're using the house together. That's a single-family occupancy.
Not here. I mean, the hypothetical does not apply in Monroe, New York. There are no college girls here, I think, using,
Well, not for a college, right? They're not boarding here for their college.
boarding here for college. And maybe the problem is, we are past those days. You start off saying you function as a family, but no one has a definition of what a family is anymore.
Right.
That's really not really, maybe that issue is not within our jurisdiction, maybe it's been taken without of our jurisdiction, but maybe that's part of the problem here. And I'm not sure that I have a solution to that. But there's tension, I think, as Chairman Boucher is pointing out, between the opening of the definition and then the closing of that first paragraph. The 2 persons not necessarily related by blood, but they function as a family. What does that mean?
Boyfriend, girlfriend living together.
But they're both adults and they both be a head of household then, if they want to be. It's one or both.
They're still operating as a functional family unit because
Right.
they're occupying it as the same manner that a married couple would.
Except they're not married.
But what distinction does that have on the use of the property?
Well, for example, right now, it means that we can't properly define what our terms are.
Right, that's absolutely correct. And if you look at letter D and all these sub-points, you'd need a private investigator
Yes,
to figure that out, because you're not gonna do that as a building inspector,
you're right.
as good as you are.
No, it's true. I don't think you can enforce this.
Right. And then you have a law in the books that's in many ways unenforceable. I think the idea is right, we all want the conclusion that we're looking for, because
But if we don't share the ethic of what it is to be a family, it's really impossible to have that.
right.
So, so I think this is an A for effort.
I think what you really, the way to really enforce this, in some ways, is motor vehicles, because that you can enforce, that you can see, that you can't deny. If there's vehicles parked all over the place, if there's vehicles, they have license plates, they have everything, you can very quickly track that.
But you wanna stay out of getting into one of the things, and this is back from the eighties, right, is
Yep.
the Supreme Court case law and the Court of Appeals case law, defining what, and this goes to the days that a heterosexual married couple is a family while a unmarried homosexual couple is not a family, or an unmarried,
Right, we don't agree on the definition of family anymore.
Right.
That's what Fred was saying.
like, we're no longer, the laws of privacy, we're no longer in a position to say, this group is not,
Which is my point,
you know.
which is my point. In other words, if we're trying to stop these multiple dwelling things. If we've got all kinds of vehicles out there,
Right.
that's a nuisance to the neighborhood. So you don't have to define whether they're family or not. You could say, you can't have these automobiles here. And in effect, if people own them, they either have to find another place to park them, find a way to get back home, or move, right? So that's one example. There's probably other things like that that can be done. But I don't know, I think we should ask the board, how do they see this being enforced? Because we agree in principle 100%. And I think what they're doing too anyway is, we're stopping the multifamily dwelling by rezoning certain places, right? And we already have a law in the books, I think, about we did have multifamily dwellings.
So the issue isn't multifamily housing. So when they talk about multifamily housing under our zoning code, it is the development of the Q.
Right.
Spring Hill, right?
Or duplexes, or,
Or duplexes,
Right.
triplexes, that kind
Right.
of stuff, right? Where we're talking about the development. What this is chopping up, generally speaking,
A single-family home.
house. And, each bedroom, when each bedroom has a lock on the door.
of course, that's a
An
good
exterior-
example, right,
An exterior lock on the door.
right.
Not the push button from the inside where you
No.
can lock people out, but where you have to put a key.
Key lock, yeah.
Into the door, on a bedroom.
Or a code, yep,
That's when you see hot plates.
yes, which is a danger, that should be a fire hazard.
So, I'm just taking notes here, so that's the.
See, I think you add that to the fire code, if it's not there already, which I'm pretty sure it would be. I think there's other, maybe more practical ways to,
Like, the goal of this is to prevent taking. and
chopping up a home,
A 3-4 bedroom house and 18 guys who live,
exactly, 100%.
or ladies. I'm not trying to pick on the guys.
Yeah, they're messier than the guys, so.
They're messing with them.
Not true.
Oh, I don't know.
Sons and the daughter, not true.
I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah, I know about, believe me, I know about it.
Yeah, I just, we're with them, 100%. I just don't know how it gets done. And I'd love to hear from the village board how you would do it.
It's all a matter of enforcement and.
Right, but in this case, I don't care, it doesn't matter who the building inspector?
You guys
You-
keep
you
saying
can't-
it's a matter of enforcement. The truth of the matter is it's not.
No, it's a matter of definition
It's also a matter of,
in ethics.
it's also a matter of the character of your people.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, because if your people are lawless, then you can enforce all you want, or you can try to enforce all you want, but you're probably not gonna get very far. That too is probably something that's out of our jurisdiction.
And most of these places are absentee owners also, they're all rented. You gotta have, maybe enforcement is, pull their right to rent the property.
How do you do that? I don't even know how you do that. You know,
We have a rental permit.
well, through that you could. Yeah, so I'm thinking, in ways like that, I think that's gotta be the point of attack, is you gotta, whoever owns the property has
To the owner.
to suffer for whatever happens, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And,
And it gets to the point, it's the type of people that he's renting to.
they can't find them.
That I can't identify the owner.
Right, but there's gotta be a way, it may take work and expense, but there's gotta be a way to do that. And if you rent, maybe that should be a condition of rental, that we know who the owner is.
Yeah, if they come in and, because I had code enforcement court this morning, I was in this
Okay.
very room in front of Judge Strauss. It's only good enough if the people come in and say, here's my application for a rental permit.
Correct, yes.
If they just buy the house in an LLC.
And start
then-
renting.
And start renting, I can't find it. Now,
But you need a rental permit, correct?
Yes, you do, but here's the thing. You just start renting without a rental permit.
Right?
Jim and Debbie jump up and down and say, you're renting without a rental permit. Liz haul them into court, file the paperwork. Here's what's gonna happen.
A representative is gonna come.
Well, if I'm lucky. Now, this court appearance, they all showed up, which I was actually, I went, I'm
Shocked.
sorry, I got 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10, which is pretty good. But what happens is, the LLC doesn't show up. Some of them, their service of process addresses are storage units down in Brooklyn and the Bronx. I've served a storage unit in the Bronx trying to get to the service of process. They don't show up, and if they're LLCs or corporations, I can get a default judgment. So, okay, Your Honor, we have evidence that they've rented the apartment for so many days. Here's a judgment against it. Okay, I can then file that against the land records and eventually get it. The apartment's still being rented,
Can a judge order a vacate order?
not through.
No, through a certain period of time, like if you can't find the owner. Say, this is a hazard, we can't allow this to keep going. They can't do that?
I could go get an injunction in New York State Supreme Court.
And what does that do?
Easier said than done.
But what would it do if you could? An injunction doing what?
From renting,
Right, but who would you serve it to?
that's the $64,000.
Right, so there's gotta be a way,
Can't find the owner.
totally get that. So what I'm saying is, there's gotta be a system that you can look up an LLC somewhere to see who is the owner.
I can
Tax
look up-
documents?
I can look up the LLC on the New York State DOS search.
Hmm.
That will identify who the person is for service of process,
Right, get that.
okay? If that has not been updated, my service is perfectly good. I have done everything I'm required to do under the law. I serve the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State mails it to whomever. It still doesn't practically solve the problem.
Right, so Fred's point was, it depends on the character of the people. If I wanna be dishonest, you can't do anything about it. That's what we're saying.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Isn't that what John Adams, the president, said?
So should there be a qualification in the law that if you're going to rent, you have to have,
You have to identify. If you-
But she's saying if you're expired, if that's old data,
If you submit for your permit and you do what you're supposed to do, we have that information. We know who's the agent, the authorized agent, we have that information. But if you don't submit and you just buy a house and start renting,
yeah, but then it's illegal. So can't a judge then issue a vacate order and say, look, you gotta be out in 60 days? Find another place.
the occupants have rights too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But what rights they have if they're renting illegally?
like.
No, no, you're not Debbie Downer, and I'm not doubting what you're saying, but what I'm wondering,
That's the reality.
I'm gonna start renting, man. Mine's in an LLC.
That's the practical reality. And it is the most, at times, it can be very frustrating.
Well, then all it does though is makes what we're doing here really of no effect. Because we know for a fact that many, not all, many of the things that we want to see stopped are going to fall into that category. So you'll stop the honest people who probably made a mistake and didn't realize it, and they'll come and comply.
I will tell you, on these boarding houses where they cram as many people in,
There's no honest people. So, and then my point is even stronger, is that then what we're doing here,
okay. So let's, since I don't have a write-up, let's move on to the rest of the write-up so we can try to get out of here this evening.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yep,
it looks
I
like this
agree.
one will need to be tabled. Okay,
How many more do we have to go with?
so,
12.
so my write-up.
11 now.
The Word doc, you'll see all the Word documents. I'm gonna start with local law 6. This is the architectural review changes.
Yep.
Pardon me, it's a minute.
So are the,
Everybody have a chance to read these?
yes, are the black lines what was changed?
No. Jeff, we're going over the write-ups. We've already done the local law. So go to local, see the LL6.
See where she says here, and
That's what I
it
meant,
says
right?
PB analysis document, LL6, not ILL, just LL.
Oh, hang on.
You're going to the Word documents. These are what I wrote up.
Okay, sorry. Let me find those.
They're at the top
Of the,
of the OneDrive.
Well, mine are.
all right, stand by, please.
All right.
Stand by, sorry, Elizabeth, hang on.
Which one do you want to start with, number 6?
6. Oh, yeah, I'm just going in number order.
LL6.
It's because it's an aerial, it's introductory local law. It's
Man, I did a lot of reading for nothing.
It's fine, just,
Okay.
is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve that?
Need a motion to approve
I'll make that motion.
LL6. Member, yep, so Member Kelly
Second.
made the motion, Member Umberto seconded the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
I'm hoping that will kind of rapid fire these. Okay, let's do 11. This is the commercial vehicles.
LL11,
I did try to incorporate, there was a disagreement. Half of you thought there should be absolutely no commercial vehicles whatsoever. The other half thought right now the law provides for somebody can, like a mom and pop plumber could take his work truck home and park it in his driveway, but he can't do business there.
The local law 11 changes that.
Local law 11 does not, if you look at it, let me just.
It says the draft comprehensive plan does not contain a specific goal with respect to parking of commercial vehicles. Think it should? No commercial vehicles in SR10, SR11, URM?
SR20 and SR10, you mean?
So, the local law redefines, modifies the definition of commercial and oversized vehicle equipment. All right, so that's section E1 and describes all of these equipment, okay? Then it says, the following commercial and oversized vehicles and equipment as defined herein shall not be parked or stored in any lot in the SR 2010 URM, and I did note, and I did speak to Elise Tribune, that's supposed to also include URW zoning districts. Any vehicle exceeding 10,000 pounds, gross vehicle weight, 20 feet in length, any trailer used for commercial purposes. Notwithstanding subsection A through C above, one commercial vehicle,
God bless you.
oversized vehicle or equipment may be parked and stored in any lot in those districts, provided it does not exceed the thresholds. So there are possibilities, so I'll give you, because I looked it up. I called my assistant husband who works for Jones and said what vehicle they drive, and then I looked it up. So the vans that they use would meet this definition, would fall under those thresholds,
Under 20 feet long.
under 20 feet long.
So the vans, all the green leaf trucks, all the Shalomi trucks, et cetera, et
Well, your
cetera.
panel truck, like if you're an electrician or something like that, all those trucks fall under it. Plumbing.
I still say no. It's a
Well, we can-
it's a residential area. I don't wanna see commercial vehicles in a residential area.
Mhm.
So that vehicle would qualify, so that's your Ford I looked it up, it's your Ford Transit and it's your Ram, something, Pro something. And I did go look up the specs, it would be under 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. Close, it's like 8 and change, 9 and change, depending on the spec.
Right, and that's empty off the lot. That's not with your tools and
But
stuff
it's
in it.
gross vehicle weight, it's not.
Right, which means
The
when
vehicle.
when you pick it up, yeah.
Right,
That's what they go by.
and it's less than 20 feet.
Yeah, well, they're all gonna be less than 20
You go
feet.
to any neighborhood and you poll, knock on the door, do you wanna see those vehicles here? The answer's no. You have no neighbors.
Well, not in this home.
You
But I
have
live-
no neighbors.
Yeah, in this particular house.
Yeah,
Now, it's limited to one.
people don't wanna live by you.
Right,
You're limited to one.
right.
So you can't have 2, 3, 4 box trucks pulled into your driveway.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about like a family where, you know, most likely the husband's gonna be the plumber or whatever. That's what he's doing, so.
Listen, I commuted to work all my life.
Hmm? But you drove something from your house to get to the bus stop.
So that's my car.
Yeah, listen, I mean,
So just,
And it wasn't even on the driveway, it was always in the garage.
look at this. I wrote, the planning board had a lengthy discussion as to the potential impact of the local law on a resident who may drive their work vehicle and park it at their home. The proposed specifications appear to allow for the parking of one standard cargo van and panel trucks used by contractors. Some members felt there should be absolutely no commercial vehicle parking, while others felt there should be a degree of allowance for homeowners to park their work truck. Does that reflect our conversation?
yeah, that reflects it.
That's fine. I make the motion, to accept that.
I'll second that.
So Member Umberto to make the motion, and Member Kelly
So they know there's a discrepancy on the board.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Motion carries.
Anytime there's a disagreement, when we do these reviews, I try to incorporate that.
I think that's good, because it gives the village board, who's gonna make the ultimate decision,
Right.
another thing to talk about, you know, to say, yeah, they understand or don't, or gives them pause.
And you're in the blessed spot and you don't have to come to an ultimate conclusion.
Yes, exactly.
You're just providing your comment and.
Yep. What-
Okay.
What are we jumping on next?
12,
Okay? PB analysis? This is the one, oh no, that's not the one.
Building height.
building height and
Yeah.
FAR clarification.
Yep.
That was 12.
Again, I tried to, the proposed zoning is gonna impact all zoning districts because it affects the height definition, and grade plane, which apply to both residential and commercial uses. The proposed local law will have a greater impact So that's their reference scheme. And then lastly, additional comments, I just added this. Definition of basement refers to any floor and does not reference above or below grade. Was that intended?
Right. Yep. We need a motion to recommend
I'll make that
or
motion.
pass these. That's great. Member Kelly made the motion,
Second.
second by Member Umberto. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
13.
13.
What is the total height for buildings now?
It depends on what district and what use.
Which one's next, Elizabeth?
13,
Oh,
which,
Oh, I had 15.
I don't see LL 13.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I still don't. I see LL, ILL.
Yeah, there was
yeah,
one, there was one missing, and I couldn't remember what it was.
it's right there, IL 13, yes, that's it. Sorry,
ILL 13.
Oh, it's ILL,
yes.
not IL, okay.
Sorry, my naming protocol wasn't perfectly consistent throughout.
It's okay, as long as we get the right one.
This is the LI zone.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And this one needs a little work. Oh, there's a typo there. And I started drafting this, but this was the district where we talked about, does it really make sense, with some of the uses that they proposed? Because the theory was,
Right, we,
we're gonna limit the uses in the 208 corridor to, less retail heavy, lots of in and out type traffic. And I did, the other thing I had uploaded was the email from Max, and he said we should look at those, when we raised those issues about the veterinary clinic, the post office, he said that's a fair point. I would also note, they call it light industrial. This is not light industrial. Light industrial is manufacturing.
right, right.
Warehousing.
It'll be a little confusing to people that understand light industrial.
This is not, I mean, there's some of it's light.
What would you
industrial.
call it, though? What would you call the zone?
Well, originally in the comp plan, I think they were gonna call it heavy business. Something along those lines, but it's not your true light industrial zone.
There's no industry, that's why.
Yeah, I don't know, heavy business doesn't sound right either to me. Because to me, I think of a busy downtown,
Business, I don't know.
It would
Now
really
look,
be.
bulk business.
A rose is a rose is a rose.
Right.
You could call it the 208
Yeah,
district.
whatever you want, as long as you
You can
identify it
call
and
whatever you
define it.
want. It doesn't really matter. If the intent is to create a light industrial district, this isn't a light industrial district. If the
And I
intent-
think that comment should be there, because I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Additional comments,
Yeah, you can, and that would be a new zone.
oh, am I, sorry, hold on. I don't wanna modify in there, I wanna modify my own. 2023, so additional comments. Not really a light industrial zone. They might have even been better like GB1 versus GB2, you know?
Yeah, that would make more sense. And then define them,
Yeah, and because, like I said, you could literally name all your zones, zone 1, zone 2,
Right.
zone 3.
well, it's like residential. You have SR10, SR20, you know the difference.
Right, but you could call SR10 1 and SR10 2.
Right.
and
Wouldn't
from a
matter.
legal perspective, it doesn't matter.
Right, as long as there's a
As long as
differentiation.
it's defined.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I like that, though, the GB, like, 2,
oh, yeah,
something like that. Yeah, I would say it doesn't fit the standard definition of an LI, an LI zone, and, maybe a GB2 would be,
perhaps.
yeah, perhaps a better way to
Do you want
identify.
to adopt this, or do you want me to modify it and you see it?
I mean, you're just gonna modify it with what we just said there.
Yeah. Do you trust me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we need a motion?
I'll
Member Kelly made the motion.
Second.
Member Umberto seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, carries.
Okay, what did we just do?
We did 13, I think that was.
Okay, so we're gonna do 14, LL 14, 2023.
Okay?
This is the general business changes.
Yep.
This one was pretty simple. This was, making a couple of the last uses that were 10,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. And again, the goal is not to allow the GB to get chopped up into really teeny tiny lots.
Mhm.
So I think this one was pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, Member Umberto made a motion,
Second that.
and Member Kelly seconded. And all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Moving everything out of the village to 17M.
15, ILL 15. This one, requires greater explanation because this is a map change one, so I had to go
This is
back.
ILL 15.
Yep,
Okay.
this, required, different questions, so I typed up, taken our discussion and put into the questions. Okay, and these are all contained in the zoning code. Whether the use is permitted by the proposed change would be appropriate in the area concerned. And I wrote, generally, the proposed changes to the zoning map appear to better align the existing conditions with the zoning districts in the village's code, i.e. zoning the existing small residential to SR 10. And then, as a result of such change, whether adequate school facilities or other public facilities and services, including roads, exist or can be created to serve the needs of additional residences or other uses likely to be constructed. And I broke it down by each section. So section 4 was, GB to
To CB.
CB. This single lot revision moves the lot from the more intense GB's district into the CB, which better aligns with the nearby residential areas. Given the small size of the lot together with the location, uses requiring significant public service are less likely. Moreover, this lot is already improved with the veterinary practice, which is in conformity with the CB's district.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not making zoning changes where all of a sudden we're opening ourselves to 1,000 new townhouse units or something like that.
Right.
GB to SR 10, again, these lots are in close proximity to the existing SR 10 residential development in each direction. Although one lot is an existing auto repair business, it will be permitted to continue as a non-conforming use. Were it to remain GB, other business uses which may not be compatible with the residential development would be permitted. Leaving that one business lot as GB would create an island of GB.
Was that the Spring Street one?
Yep,
Yeah, okay.
given the existing development and increased need for schools and public services is unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Again, SR 20, section 6, SR 20 to SR 10, this is really to match the existing
Yes,
conditions of the
yep.
neighborhood. Okay. CB to SR 10, again, another change, to reflect, we've got a couple of lots on the outskirts of the CB zone, which have got better match SR 10. I'm sorry. That's section 8. This is section 7 is the Maple Avenue one. I just wrote under the CB zoning designation, these homes could be redeveloped into more intensive commercial uses. And there's a typo potentially.
No. Did you ever ask Elizabeth, Elise, their reason for including like the corner
Yes,
lot?
I
Oh,
figured it out. I asked Max, one, because it creates when you create these zoning districts, you want to avoid situations of spot zoning or little islands. So if you look at that map, because the SR10 comes all the way through and connects below it, it would have created little pockets of island. Here, I'll show you. I realized it the next morning after,
yeah, I'm trying to picture the islands that you're talking about.
yeah, I know what you're saying. And let me just pull up his email real quick. So here was, in addition to what I asked him, he said the multifamily housing as a principal use is being removed from the CD. So there's no reason for lot 31, which is, 310, which is the townhouses next to you, across from you.
Okay, right?
There's no reason for that to stay in the CB because multifamily is no longer a permitted use. We've now changed multifamily. We've removed multifamily from the CB and now it's multifamily over apartments. So it wouldn't conform to CB, so there's no point in leaving it.
But it doesn't conform to SR10 either.
Right, but it creates a continuous zone. I'll show you on the map once. Lot 29.12 is encumbered by a conservation easement, so it's unbuildable. The
Which one
Masonic-
is that the corner of
That's the big lot. That's
Mill
behind the
Pond and Stage?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's empty right now.
I suppose that Masonic Lodge would benefit by remaining in the CB, but really it is the only non-residential lot on the four corner of Maple and Stage and would become a one-lot island of CB. We were originally going to rezone the DPW yard to SR10 for the same reason of continuity, but in the end decided to leave it in BR.
But the Methodist Church is there as well, which then makes it non-conforming.
So it can remain non-conforming.
Yeah, but I don't think it is right now, is it? No, I don't think it is.
So effectively, it creates one great swath.
Right, but I guess, so if, and I don't care one way or the other, I'm just trying to figure their logic out. This is, so, my house,
Your house.
yeah, sorry, my house here. This is the 310. So, so if they stopped it there and cut off, it went here,
Yeah, but I think they're trying to reduce the options that can be done to your house and this, and make it one continuous path, because then this is SR10 too. They were gonna take this, and this was all gonna be SR10 and go through.
yeah, I mean, I don't think to me, that wouldn't make a difference anyway, because
This
across
doesn't,
the dam is here, and so is everything else.
this doesn't bother me, now that he said that we've taken multifamily out of here, because if somebody, let's say, 30 years from now, somebody who comes in and wants to redevelopment, do you wanna give them the more intensive or the less intensive use?
Right, less intensive.
So, for all of these properties, the question is, do you want the more intensive or less intensive use? And I think along this stretch, you want the less intensive use.
Yeah.
You're good?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why they did that.
No, it's fine. Okay,
So we need a motion.
Guess a motion to accept.
Okay, so Member Umberto made a motion.
I'll second.
Marilyn Member Carlich, second. There's a name we haven't heard.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're usually ahead of me.
Don't
That's
all vote at once.
Those guys are fast.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? No, motion carries.
Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there.
What are we on, 15 or 16?
60.
16.
Mixed-use multifamily?
Okay, so this is for the central business zone. So right now, we allow multifamily in the central business zone, but what I've tried to talk about was that the character of the central business zone is retail or business on the first floor, apartments on the second floor.
Right.
So a pure, straight-up multifamily project doesn't really match the historic type character in the
From
CBD zone.
ground up.
So, and you'll see the current multifamily regulations do not apply neatly to projects within the CD zone as they do not reflect the mixed-use character of the downtown core.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I also went, although these changes prevent the construction of pure multifamily buildings, the changes better reflect the existing development patterns within the CD district. None identified, and then I identified the,
Right,
the goal that, was. it was-
comprehensive. Yeah, I think this is right, spot on.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Marilyn.
I'll second.
Member Carlich makes the motion,
There you go.
and Member Kelly seconded. We're using up all our combos. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, 17.
Multifamily conversions.
I went in, just, you're in agreement, general agreement with the stated rationale that there are very few instances of successful multifamily conversions within the building. The code still contains opportunities for the development of multifamily development, such as the multifamily over commercial in the CB zoning district and the URW zoning district. We'll get to that one later. Again, they're only gonna affect properties in the CD and the URM districts. I didn't identify any, indirect implications. And then I identified the comp plan goal, and I did copy it
Into there, yeah.
into there.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, this basically reflects everything we talked about.
Make the motion to approve.
Okay, Member Kelly made a
I'll
motion,
second.
and Member Umberto seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
You make the motions too?
I can.
No, we didn't add you
I
to the
typically
combo.
think the chairman
Yeah.
shouldn't. But if you really follow Robert's rules, they can't. But I don't follow Robert's rules. I mean, we don't follow Robert's
Well, the
rules.
chair gets a vote.
They don't, no, they can vote. They typically can't make a motion.
Make
in
the
Robert-
motions,
In
yeah.
Robert's rules?
No,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
planning board,
Right.
In Elizabeth's rules.
no.
Yeah, I know we can, and it's a really funny story we won't ever get into, but the very first time I took over as chairman, I thought we went by Robert's rules, because I had no idea. So there was one time we just came at a dead stop, and nobody would make a motion for this one thing, and I thought I couldn't, so it got tabled. Then I remember I called Elizabeth, like, I would have done this, but I can't make a motion. She said, yes, you can. Well, why didn't somebody say something?
The other thing you can do is ask for the motion.
I did.
Oh, and nobody would make the motion.
No.
You make the motion.
Yeah, and there's a story behind that, but,
Oh, I remember that one.
yeah. So, anyway,
Okay, this is out of character dwellings.
what's this, 18?
Yep.
Yep, ILL 18 of 23.
So just to be clear on this local law, it doesn't necessarily stop what we've been talking about, prohibited, but it triggers a level of review. It triggers additional review, because single-family homes and two-family homes can go to Jim and just get a building permit. There are, I know at least one, and I'm pretty in,
Right.
bring in a boatload of fill, and make the half a, a high ranch, they make the base, what is semi-below grade, they make that the basement, and now the first floor is up here, and the second, and
Yep.
so all of a sudden
They-
they're,
They look
and
to
you've
build.
got this, what we call a pop-up, and so you've got flat, 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 pop, flat. So that's what this is designed to prevent. Essentially, it triggers site plan review,
Right.
okay? And we're hoping that together with the height changes to the definition of grade, like where you measure, that you are not incentivized to bring in fill and then measure from the top of the new fill, because that's what's happening now.
Correct. So there's nothing in here that stops that. This just triggers
The
review.
The building height and FAR change the definition
Okay,
of where you
that's-
measure,
Right, okay.
okay?
Yep, I do remember that now. Okay, so,
And then this one was pretty basic as well. It will affect, single-family dwellings in the SR ten and SR twenty zoning districts.
wait, which, oh, yeah, okay.
And there's a typo, I'll fix the typo.
Yeah.
So, it encourages, because here's the thing, as builders, developers, flippers, whatever,
So you got the spelling error on how?
yeah,
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
If the theory here is, you're told, okay, you can have your house if you build this way, and it's just a building permit, go and get your building permit, pay it, you're good. Or you can go spend 3 or 4 months in front of the planning board. Most rational builders who wanna keep their money, bring it within specs so that they don't have to
Right.
go. Okay, does anybody have any objections to that?
No.
I'll fix the typo.
Someone want to make a motion?
With a typo fixed. I'll make that.
You know what, I already wrote that. Don't laugh, I had already written that part.
Now it's noted, so, okay.
Okay, Marilyn, you second.
I'll second.
Okay, Member Kelly
And I'm in
made the
favor.
motion, Member Carlich seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Don't faint from the shock, we've got one more. and that's it.
Yeah, baby.
I'm really, proud of us.
I know.
Actually, I am too.
That's amazing.
So urban residential
I
multifamily.
just, these write-ups did take several hours,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They did.
Yes, they did.
I can
Nobody
see,
knows
I
that,
can
Paul, but
tell.
you and I.
No, I get it.
They're not complicated, they're not long, but.
No, but you gotta look things up and you gotta figure, so there's a lot there.
It was not easy.
All right, this is the elimination of URM,
Yeah.
and then for vacant lands, and then creates the URW workforce housing.
Yep.
So, I did write, the proposed change affects, proposed changes affect relatively few parcels in the village. The affected parcels will still be able to be developed at SR ten, which is still a relatively high density.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I noted the recommendation, and then I did defer to the village board's finding as to sufficiency of housing. I didn't wanna get into the analysis of does the comprehensive plan provide adequate housing type, quantity, variety, et cetera. I've been involved in a couple of those types of litigations, so, I will defer to the board as to their findings that there's adequate housing as the legislative body.
Yeah, hang on one second, because I have a note to myself on this one. Give me 1 second.
I don't know that there's,
That's under the CP changed. Right?
what are you looking at?
And then the comp plan, is that what you wanted?
No. Just give me 1 second. So that 121, eliminate URM from any remaining vacant lands, that's the one? And it's, so there's a redlined version, the one that you sent, the 13 things, it says the addition of exterior lighting fixtures on structures within a historic district or on a village landmark structure should be subject to Landmarks Preservation Commission review.
Completely,
But it's under the 121.
hold on.
So in your,
Here.
No, H121.
yeah, H12,
H12, oh.
Hold on.
that's what I'm saying.
You might have a different letter. Yes, you have a different letter.
When you say I have a different letter, meaning what?
Right here, Jeff, because it's lining up perfectly with what I'm.
Okay.
Okay, because this is only the pages, that's page 41.
That's 42.
No, it's not.
Hang on.
What does that mean?
62.
I saw 42 when I looked.
62.
My mind. Okay. Okay. Because I was thrown by that. So,
Yeah.
when I read through, I'm like, what?
Seems to focus
Okay.
development of multifamily
That solves that.
housing in a, what's a blighted area?
Rundown.
Pretty dumb.
Does anybody have anything on that one?
No. I think that's fine. We need a
So
motion.
all the URM that's existing, the Q, Smith Farm, Spring Hill, all that stays, that's all gonna remain URM. It's just the vacant lands that are not developed yet will go to SR10. And the board has effectively made a finding that there is enough housing in the, of that type in the village, and we don't need to leave vacant. Now, it's not a huge amount of vacant land, it's actually a relatively small portion.
Right.
And the one lot, I believe, that's going to GE is wet. That's the one behind the Q. Remember when we were discussing
Right.
that? I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that that's all wet. And I do, before sometimes I do this, I don't go to the second page. The first page reflects the text changes, okay? Oh, there's another typo. I'll fix that really. These are the questions for respects to the map
It's
changes.
remaining in the village.
And what's the insert discussion on regrowth?
SR10 rules,
So
which is 100 foot, right? 100 foot frontage.
what I wanted to have a discussion with you before I finalized it was, what your thoughts are of the proposed change on growth in the village. Whether you think it's gonna be, and this was one I didn't wanna just come up with this, I wanted to talk to you folks about it. Is growth gonna remain on a relatively same trajectory? Is this gonna stop growth in its tracks? Is this going to add to the growth? So what were your thoughts about how this will impact the growth of the village?
Just to ask a question, all the parcels that are left, according to this law, all the parcels that are left within the village, and some have many acres, everything is gonna develop under the rules of SR10.
Or the work
Some of them-
development?
Some of them went to some of them, depending on their location, went to general business, so the lot behind the queue went to
Right.
general
Okay, but
business.
no PUDs,
No,
okay,
no. Everything else, so it's either general business or SR10,
okay. And SR,
depending on where,
and SR10 is roughly 100-foot frontage.
it's 10,000 square foot lot. 10,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
So it's 4 units an acre.
Hmm,
It's 4 units an acre.
4 units an acre.
Right.
So thoughts on growth?
So are we looking at, does it stifle it?
Does it stifle it? Does it keep it on the same trajectory? Does it,
I think it manages it,
you man it, okay.
yeah, I think it manages it better as it relates to the comprehensive plan. You know,
Throw the word in the word sustainable growth.
yes, yeah, that would be right.
Growth would be more sustainable. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Let's hope it makes it more manageable.
I'm surprised, I mean, I would have gone to minimum 1/3 lots, if not half-acre lots. This is quarter,
Well,
this is
But
quarter,
SR20 would be that.
Is what
Yes.
close.
But-
It's 20,000.
quarter-acre lots are small.
Right, but I think what they're trying to do too, when you look at when we looked at all those maps, is they're trying to connect it with the closest, what it's connected with. If it was SR10, they're making it SR10 because it fits right there. You
Okay,
know, that was the objective, I think.
All right, so does anybody else have any further discussion on what I wrote? I did put proposed changes more likely to result in a decreased need for services from the existing
Mhm.
zoning. With that said, projects in the GD zoning district will require full secret analysis as to impacts on public
Right.
services prior to approval. Note the recommendation, and then I also wrote, given the relatively small percentage of lands affected by the change, the potential build-out under current zoning versus potential build-out under proposed zoning is not likely to be significant.
No, I think it's good. Anybody else?
Fine.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve that.
Member Kelly made the motion.
I'll second.
Member Umberto seconded. All in favor? And
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
You, my
Are
friends,
we done?
have finished. So,
Nice.
I don't believe, just to summarize, I'm gonna take all the local laws you did approve, we did not make, and I don't have a write-up for. I'm gonna summarize what we talked about before, the illegal occupancy. I'll put that in a separate letter, okay? Because essentially I'm gonna print all these and just attach it in one letter. That because we received individual local laws, we did individual write-ups, and please see the attached individual write-ups. I'm not gonna try to put that in one comprehensive letter. I will do a separate letter to say, with respects to that local law, these were concerns, and we did not go through the analysis.
What was that, what local law?
The
Okay.
illegal occupancy.
Right. Yeah, that was,
So, and I can find out from Elise if that's,
tell them we're with them on it, but it's,
yeah.
you know, it's,
So then we just have to do minutes and then don't forget,
we're going to push the minutes because with all the reading everybody's doing, I'm sure people didn't get to the minutes.
September 11th.
Yes, so we have a regularly scheduled workshop meeting on September 11th that I think we ought to cancel because we do the ceremonies and everything, the
Correct.
village doesn't do it. I
Agreed.
think it's something that we should not meet on that day. I don't know that we would need a workshop for September. Rhonda, what has come in?
Don't know. Oh, the submission date is the 1st, September 1st, which is an odd date because it's a holiday weekend.
Right, it's
But
also,
as of right now, we have this item from 208 Business Center.
Monroe and Barry.
which we couldn't approve anyway until
The,
Right.
right.
the regular
Well,
meeting.
I just sent a letter to I sent a message to Ryan asking him if he wanted to put the landscaping and lighting plan forward. Because that whole water drainage issue is why we didn't schedule the public meeting, but he had still submitted the landscaping and the lighting plans.
Oh, then no, they gotta resubmit the whole.
Okay, well, that's, I wasn't sure if he wanted to resubmit everything.
208, you mean?
No, Monroe Woodbury Islamic Center.
Yeah, well, they didn't
made
get,
a submission, but they still have homework to do.
but they also
Right.
didn't get the, they have
Well,
to,
that's what I'm talking.
yeah, they have to redo their engineering because they didn't get permission from the
Right,
neighbor.
well, that's part of the point. So they had three things. One of them was the landscaping plan, one was the lighting plan, and one was the re-engineering about the water issue, the drainage issue.
Right.
They have submitted the landscaping and lighting.
But I
They
don't know if
said
that's
they
gonna-
may take time
'Cause that
to
could change.
resubmit for the water drainage. So do we hold up lighting and landscaping until,
I think we combine they're not in an approvable state.
No,
Even
And it
if,
could-
even if they're, so I'm just going through my head, even if they gave us something that was sufficient that we could refer it, we can do the technical review that we would do during a workshop and do the motion to refer it. And then 208 is going to be between the consultants. And they've tentatively agreed that Natalie's gonna take a pre-review before the first.
right, so we'll know where it stands.
We'll know where it stands. What I would suggest is we consolidate the
To the,
the
right,
regular meeting and the work session. to
I
the
agree.
regular meeting.
okay.
so, yeah, I think that's appropriate.
But Rhonda, please make sure you notify anybody that makes a submission.
Correct. I have not, I mean, so we have till the first, this is open till the first.
And the moratorium's still in place, so we're not worried about the, any kind of onslaught. It's gonna be
Right.
something in the pipeline right now.
I know there's enough services,
Yeah, I don't think it's we shouldn't
So
be
the
meeting.
regular meeting for September will be the 26th.
Both meetings, it would be a special meeting, it would be the workshop and it'd be.
Yes, I have it as the
Given the
26th,
amount of-
correct, yes.
Given the number of applicants we have and given that we've gotten through this, I think we can accomplish both at the same meeting.
I do too.
And
so.
then folks-
Except we're gonna have the meeting minutes at that, we can't get through those at all.
No, and we will need to set the public meeting, assuming the 208 passes muster with our professionals. And this is again for the seeker portion. So then,
But
we-
those are simple pro forma, those are
yeah,
simple
very simple.
procedural.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
resolutions. It's not substantive resolutions.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think that's a problem for us to do that, so.
No. And I think at this point, we'll know well before Natalie's gonna give me a call, yes, yay or nay, and.
Right. So, yeah, so everybody's in favor of that? We're good to
We're
move
good.
that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll combine the two meetings for September and make it a special meeting.
Rhonda, just, coordinate with Kim Zamara to,
The
get
calendar
that notice,
on the website.
that's canceled.
Oh, yeah, I do that myself, yeah,
All right, notify Rhonda then.
yeah. I have, see, that means it's a follow-up.
Okay, anything else that we needed to? So we'll push the minutes to that meeting, as well. And then you guys have the minutes now, so plenty of time to read them.
And we don't need the special meetings.
And we don't need a special meeting.
Yeah.
Ooh, next week is free.
Yes, next week is
look at that.
free.
You bought a night with the family to make another ice cream cake.
Remember, we
This weekend.
oh,
You weren't here,
Did I not know that, I didn't know
we
this,
were
that's
gonna
why,
schedule a special meeting,
but next week,
we were gonna schedule a special meeting next week to finish what we didn't finish tonight.
but we. finished,
okay,
so-
that maybe I should have known about, but okay, I'm good, we're good with that,
But. they-
Doesn't matter now.
yeah.
Yeah, we did.
All right, folks, I make a motion to adjourn.
I was
Okay,
waiting for
motion to
that.
adjourn by member Kelly,
Second, anyone?
I'll second it.
seconded by member Carlich. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. And if you talk for the next minute or two.